This is the first episode of hopefully at least a weekly podcast we're calling Late Game Reviews. This is Mr. Line, and I'm here with.
Game Bite.
Okay, that's gonna be hard for me to get used to. That's not what I'm used to calling him. But alright. And the game that I want to talk about, almost the inspiration for this podcast, is uh, Dragon Age. Mainly because when I am the definition of a jaded gamer, and I spit the old man yelling at the kids who are on my lawn, and I spit on the new games as their derivative, or they're like Assassin's Creed with just a ridiculously weak story. A single note is Assassin's Creed. You can climb stuff fast is all of Assassin's Creed. The missions are all exactly the same. It takes a lot for me to find any interest in a game, and that's what held me back from purchasing Dragon Age in the first place. I didn't know what to expect. I had been burned so many times before that finally, when I decided to get it off Steam or wherever I got it, might have been a humble bundle for like $2. I gave it a shot, and boy was I surprised. I can't. The last game I think that gripped me in any kind of way, in more than just man, this is kind of fun, was Dark Souls. But this game did it in a whole other way. I had not had fun in an RPG. Man, I can't even remember the last RPG that I had fun in. So when I say that I like this game, I want you to understand, dear listener, I guess, that I that is not an easy thing for me to admit, and it's more than like it entertained me, and I'm not done with it yet, but I'm at the very end, and I am going to relish this last couple of steps, which is why I'm taking so long. All right, with that setup, and the whole reason I was setting it up like that is because mostly what I'm going to talk about is negative, because in this shining example of a game, those blotches of bad just stick out so harshly, especially one. One sticks out considerably more than the rest, and you're probably going to hear it as I spit all over my monitor trying to get that out. We did a practice run, and I got a little too heated. Hopefully, I can keep that under control, but I doubt it. You'll definitely hear my hate for that one moment. But let's talk about what you liked, Grassy. What about Dragon Age do you like?
I like the fact that it was free. Haha. No, actually, I picked it up on Origin. They had a on the house special for it. Uh, I didn't really know what it was about. I never really heard about it before. So I was like, oh, what the heck, it's free. I tried it out, and it turned out pretty good. I actually ended up buying the Ultimate Edition
You
when
spent money
when it
on
was
this
on sale.
game?
Yeah, I did, right?
Whoa.
Yeah, they were having their Thanksgiving special, 75% off. So I was able to grab it for like $7 with all the DLCs. Uh, I like it. One of the greatest things that I like about it
I
is
have to
the
point out before that you made fun of that you got it for free, but you spent more on your edition than I did. I think I got my ultimate for $4. Just pointing that out. So what did you seriously like about the game? Go.
wow. You just rubbed it
You
in,
just had
didn't you?
to you rubbed it in. You brought it up, and I had to just clear the
You
water.
you could have just left it at, oh, I paid for it and that was it. But no,
Here at Late Game
rub it in.
Reviews, we like the truth, the real truth. This is we are well biologists.
And the truth is we're cheap when it comes to
Oh
games.
my, that is the truth. Alright, we just finished. Before we got on, we were debating for the last like hour. Should we buy Saints Row for $7? Saints Row 4. I was like, oh, I don't know. I
and
don't
and that's
know.
that's the reason why we're called late game reviews is because we wait till it's like $5.
Well, partially because of the money, but also I need to know it's good. If I'm gonna spend any money on it, you better convince me that you are worth it, uh, or be ridiculously cheap so I can just take a chance. All right, so you were
Now
saying you.
now one of the reasons why we also wait till it's cheap is by that time they'll have their Game of the Year edition with all the DLCs and all the patches, so
So it'll
it'll
work.
it'll be at its best when we play it. Not when it's like when it first comes out and like it's Assassin's Creed Unity where it's just full of bugs and it's just messy. We get to play it when it's at its like full potential.
And I didn't actually run into any Dragon Age spoilers or anything. And I did see some reviews. Like, that's one of the other things that made me interested to even spend a little bit of money was, what's his name? What is that guy's name? Angry Joe. He did a review of it, and I've heard him, he's pretty harsh. And for this one, he was just glowing at how much he enjoyed it. And he even had trouble with it, which I did too, and that was part of what's fun. But keep going, keep going. You were describing why this is, 10,000 times better than Skyrim. Go.
Oh, yeah, one of the biggest things I liked about it was the dialogue. You actually get to chat with your companions, and they always have something interesting to say, especially whenever you're on missions, on your little journeys. Depending on who you group your companions with, they'll say different things to each other, and a lot of times it's kind of humorous, and they'll make fun of each other. And later on through the game, you can chat with them, and you try to. There's kind of like a little karma system, and if you're good to them, you get plus karma. If you're mean to them, you get minus. And they'll open up to you more and talk about more about their lifestyle and what concerns them. And if you get far enough, they'll ask you to help them on a mission, and that'll greatly increase your karma, and then they'll be able to trust you more. It's a neat little concept they put in the game.
And I don't know very many games that have something that involved, but the having teammates. I've played games that have that. I mean, you've never played RPGs, right? You didn't play Star Ocean, you didn't play FFs, you didn't play Chrono Trigger, you didn't play any of those old franchises where you gather people and put them together and play.
Now I did play Mass Effect, which kind of has the dialogue,
That
but
doesn't
it's kind of
quite count, though.
yeah, it's kind of loosely put in there.
What I'm talking about is like the old school RPGs where you have a trail of people following behind you wherever you move. Have you even ever seen that?
Not,
I mean, they literally walk in a line, so that you're like a snake because every move you take, they take a delayed move behind you, and you have your little parley following you around. It's like old Super Nintendo games.
no, I haven't.
So the idea of having party members that sort of do things and have their own personalities is a little new for you. I would say, though, I have never played a game that had it to where, I would actually stop while I'm walking around to hear them finish. Because like, oh man, I don't want to accidentally talk to this person and cut Alistair off yelling at the dog or something. Or Morgan, she went on for a good minute complaining with the dog. And that was entertaining. That part of the companions I do like. I just wish that more of it was involved in the game. And the little plus or minuses. Well, I'll get into it. Let's not start the hate prematurely. Keep going. Is there anything else you liked about it that stood out? Not just like, oh, I like the color of this guy's sword. No, like significant thing that stood out to you.
I guess the whole combat system was kind of neat, to where you can select your individual companions and you can order them around. You can tell them how to like approach the enemy. You can tell them, oh, you can attack them using this or this. Tell them to use a potion or an item, or you could have just ignore it altogether and just let them do it automatically. It's kind of neat.
I wish that were true, though. You actually still have to control whoever it is you're highlighted. As far as I know, where I couldn't figure out how you can unhighlight people. Did you?
No, I mean that's kind of expected, because you are playing as the main character, so he doesn't really have a voice or a name. So he's kind of the person you control, even though you can control your other party members.
Well, he or she does have a voice. You can pick one, so they go "ugh" and "ah."
Yeah,
and
but they won't like really. They'll say a few things, but they won't like get engaged in a conversation with your teammates or somebody from like a town or something.
I guess so, but the core of the reason I said I did like it. I didn't exactly describe why, but the core of the reason for me was the fact that you can role play a little bit, and if a lot of people, Dungeons & Dragons is not that popular anymore, or at least not around here. I haven't found very many people that like it. So maybe there's like parts of the world where people are all about it. But in general, I would say it's not as big as I wish it was. Because when you're playing in a Dungeons and Dragons game, you are only limited by your imagination and the imagination of the DM. If it's like a crappy DM, he's gonna be like, no, you can't do that. But if it's a pretty loose DM, you can. The sky's the limit, man. Whatever you can come up with what you've got, as long as it kind of fits what's going on. And that's the other thing when you're playing D&D. It's possible you could make it all about numbers and trying to win, but the way when we usually play it, we're not after that goal. We weren't trying to be gods. We weren't trying to, absolutely win something. We're trying to tell a story and play a character. So if my character wanted to do something or get something done, I would have him or her do it matching the character that I built, even knowing it wouldn't work out. Sometimes, because that's what the game was. It was almost like acting, except not acting because I'm a terrible actor. It's just coming up with a character in your mind and having them guide the decisions, and those decisions affecting the game. Well, no game I've ever played has ever let me to do that, and that's just the tippity tip of the iceberg. Why I hated Skyrim so much. The depths of my hate for that game go way beyond that. But one of the core things is, it pretends like you can do that. Like you can affect things, you can have choices, you can have an actual character to follow. And I think the only person I ever saw who actually did roleplay in it was that guy who did Rag to Riches videos, which I'm going to put in the comments if anyone wants to see that. If you ever want to see what it's like to sort of roleplay a character within a game, like a video game, this guy does it. I think it's pretty entertaining, but just it's so hard to do it because of the limitations of the game. But in in Dragon Age, this is not Dark Souls. In Dragon Age, when I started, I had a concept of a character in my mind, and it boiled down to I was making a mage. She was an elf mage, and I had it in my mind that she would do whatever authority told her as long as she marked them as authority. If they were not authority in her mind, then she didn't want to do. She didn't care what you wanted. She was pretty heartless outside of that. And that's what I had come up with in my mind while I was going through that little, when you're inside the Fade for the first time, as soon as you start off, that's what I'd been developing. And then the options came up for that exact thing right there, because then you have that dude, the blood mage, who's telling you, you just gotta help us leave, that's all we want to do. And my character, like I said, she follows authority, and her authority was the archmage. So I had her betray him because that's what she wanted. I didn't know that he was going to be a blood mage, because how would you know? I guess if you really thought about it, you might. But I didn't know. So when it turned out he was a blood mage and it worked out, it was like, wow, I made a decision on how I wanted my character to act. The options for the dialogue matched what I wanted to do, and an interesting outcome happened thanks to that. And I was completely sold at that point. It had just if I don't know how other games could possibly grab me like that. Hook, line, and sinker. I loved it. Is there anything like that that was just like, oh my god, this is definitely a game for me, that happened to you on this one?
Nope.
Nope, you're just like, nah, it's worth $7. It was good.
Yeah, it was good.
All right, I think we've said enough good then. I was trying to lay down so that it's clear I do like this game, and I get into the negatives pretty harshly, but this is definitely a game that I completely enjoy. I don't want, it doesn't have much replay value, but I don't want to beat it too fast. I'm actually considering, before finishing, maybe starting it one more time just to make it last a little bit longer. But let's get to the bad. Why don't you open this one up, Bites? Show us one. Let us know one part that you particularly didn't like.
Okay. I would say one of the biggest things that I didn't like was the world itself, in that it's not as open as Skyrim.
Skyrim.
Yeah, believe it or not, something Skyrim has over Dragon Age is the world. The problem is there's so much like dialogue and side quests that you don't really notice. There's not too many levels within the game. Uh, let me pull up a map here. There's probably at least a dozen so places you can go. I think when you first begin, there's only like 6 or 7, and throughout the storyline, you can unlock the rest. There's probably I don't know, about close to 20 places you can go to, and each of them they're fairly small. They're probably like a few rooms big. Some of the dungeons are a little bit bigger. But the problem is, a lot of the times once you finish those areas, you cannot go back to them and really do anything. Like some of them will actually be closed off, so you can't continue where they were. Some of them will be grayed out from the map, so you can't even click on them. I believe that first town, what's it called? Lothering?
Lothering.
Lothering. You're able to visit it there one time, and then once you complete one of the big mission quests, it's overrun by darkspawn, and you can't go there anymore, which I found to be kind of bad. Because that's less places you get to travel. And I noticed on some of them too, because you can't jump or really have like those type of movements in this game. If you go to an area where it's kind of rocky or hilly, you can't really jump off the edges. So if you have to go down a cliff or like a little hill, you actually have to go all the way around, which is kind of annoying because all it's really doing is wasting time, where you could just jump off the edge if it was any other game or Skyrim.
Skyrim has a lot of room, but there's a lot of nothing, so I wouldn't count that as real exploration. You could go look at this tree or look at that tree, but you're not gonna find anything worth finding. Maybe a fight, maybe a chest. It's dumb. But I would say that wanting replay, I mean, you can't do that. You can't have a narrative-driven game that has a lot of replay without it being a narrative-driven game that builds its narrative in a randomized way. So it's not like a coherent story. It's more one that you fill in, similar to like Dwarf Fortress. When you're playing that, you get little things that tell you what's happening, but they don't explicitly tell you what's happening. It's like, this guy went here, this guy got sick, this guy did this, and you sort of fill in their emotions and what the full story is with yourself, and that allows them to pretty much be a story machine is what Dwarf Fortress is. This is not that. This is a coherent narrative that makes sense from beginning to ending, well, sort of, and because of that, since it's so narrative driven, replay value is just not something this kind of game can do. And I don't know if it's fair to put that as a negative.
I think the only thing going for it for replayability is the different storylines, like because you get to choose about 6 different races, and they each have their own different beginnings, and then of course whatever decisions you make, there's a slightly different outcome. That's something to look into whenever you replay it, to see how your decisions would have affected things if you chose a different path.
I mean, I guess it would be nice though if they had an option to set that said I've played this game before, so that you could skip through some of the narrative faster, while still retaining what's happening. Because when you're pressing escape to skip through stuff, it's kind of awkward. I guess that's true. I think they streamlined the narrative one of the Mass Effects too, right? Where you don't even have to pick anything; it just sort of does it.
Yeah.
I'll give you that it would be nice to have something like that in this game. But I do agree also that the jump is something that's missing, but only because the level design is just so weak. I actually, can you, the difference between Radcliffe and another town that isn't Radcliffe and the inside is not that much. I actually didn't think that the actual environments were particularly interesting, and anytime you're not inside of a city, you start seriously feeling the limitations of the camera. But I did find a lot of times it was difficult with the minimap, or even just looking down on the floor knowing where I could or I couldn't walk. and that's never a good thing because then you start
I
feeling like, oh, if only I could jump to get over this one thing because I didn't know it was actually a limited area.
and it's not just cliffs. I also noticed that there are some areas that look like they could be open, like you could fit through them, but there's like an invisible wall there. And I noticed there's even like one where there's like a small stream going through it, and there's a whole bunch of rocks on top of the stream, and you would think, oh, you can just walk across the top to get to the other side, but no, you have to go find a bridge in order to cross over.
Or
Which
that
is kind
that one map where you're fighting the wolves. By the way, I'm assuming this is old game reviews. We're not even gonna worry about spoilers. We're gonna give whatever we want away that makes sense. But when you're getting towards the wolves and you're fighting in the where the graves are, the mini map makes fallen trees look like bridges, but they're not because you can't jump on top of them, and that is the problem with them. It's not that you can't jump, because not being able to jump is fine. The problem is that it looks like you should be able to, but you can't. That one I didn't like, and that leads to the thing that I didn't that struck me pretty hard in this game, and it's because of the not so great level design. Is the camera. The camera, man, it fights me so often. I actually think it bugs out a lot, where it gets off center to my character, and sometimes extremely significant, like almost an entire screen away, where I can't see my character until I zoom in and zoom out. Well, it's center back on, but because of that angle that it picks, it works well in smaller rooms, like most of the places where you go. But when you start getting into the big caves, or when you're inside of the forest and there's more open, or that one point when I think it is Lutheran, maybe, where you're supposed to find herbs. So you just walk around this big empty area and there's some random people. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's
and
like,
which
it's like right outside where you save Stan.
uh-huh.
And there's that big open area and you just walk around it. You can either walk around it for... What?
The little field area?
Yeah.
Where there's a whole bunch of bandits?
That part was so harsh because there's nowhere to hide, there's nowhere to look for anything, and the people aggro you from off your screen, so you don't know what's over there. You just know that there's some red. And it continues on. There's more instances than that in the game, and that was a serious problem for me. I did not like that at all. And then you tried to look at it with the camera, and you could like level it out to look at third-person view, but that's so awkward. It's certainly not designed for that to be very well. And then you can sort of butt shimmy the camera backwards to see further, but it is very awkward, it's very cumbersome, and it's clearly not designed to be that way. They should have just allowed free camera for a wider range, for as far of a range as a red guy can aggro you. Because that did bother me every time somebody aggroed me that I couldn't see.
Okay, well, the thing I don't like about the camera is that usually when you're in a hallway or a corridor and you turn around a corner, usually your camera will see around the corner before your character does, and when that happens, sometimes if there's a group of enemies, it'll initiate a fight. It'll start playing the music and your characters will draw their weapons, and it's kind of annoying because if I feel that a fight is kind of unknown or might be too difficult, I like to save it before then. But whenever you initiate a fight, you can't save, and it's kind of annoying because they don't even see each other when the camera turns the corner, so they won't even come after you, and your group won't even go after them sometimes, and it's pretty annoying.
That happens when you're stealth also.
I mean, you won't even get a warning. Sometimes if you're just running around a corner and you don't know anything's there, as soon as your camera is in sight of the enemy, it'll start. So it's like you have no choice but to fight then and there.
Yeah, I've broken aggro maybe 2 times, but it's very inconsistent. This one time I just closed the door and it broke aggro. Normally it doesn't happen, and sometimes when I was as sneaking, you can stealth around, right? So you open doors, and I want to assess like how many enemies are in each area, so I'll start opening doors to view it, and that leads to everybody being aggroed because they don't de-aggro. So then you fight everybody all at once, which in the beginning on easy is not a big deal. In the beginning on hard is actually pretty hard, and that kind of leads me to one other thing I want to talk to. But before I get into something too heavy, do you want to add something else that another problem that you ran into?
With the camera?
No,
Or
not.
just
I mean,
in
you
general?
brought up the camera, but the big one that I want to bring up, and I don't know if you want me to just start it now, or do you want to bring something else up before I dig into this?
Uh, well, I got some other things to talk about
Okay,
if you
go.
if you want to go through them. There's also the bugs. I've only met, even though the game's already old, and it's been mostly patched. My only game-breaking bug that I've come across was with the I believe the particle effects, because some people have said online that if there are too many particle effects, if there are like too many mages casting spells, it'll crash the video. The video, I guess something with the engine will cause the game to crash, and then that happened during the final battle with the big dragon. It happened like 3 times. I was able to get him down to half health, and then he spit out some fire or whatever, and the game crashed. It also happened a second time when I was fighting a huge group of Darkspawn. They started casting their stuff, and the game just completely crashed. Well, since the game is already old, there's no more patches for it, and it seems like the only known fix for it is to either try again or bring down your graphic settings to about half, and that'll usually fix the problem.
I didn't run into that bug. I did run into the camera bug that offset and made things very awkward. And I read about this bug that you're able to spawn more than one familiar as a rogue, and supposedly you can spawn almost an infinite amount of them, but it just confuses everything. Like, they start taking over slots of your party, and there's no way to get rid of them. I didn't try it. I don't know if it was an old bug, but I was just looking under different specializations and found that to be the case.
What else?
It takes too long. Let's get into this. I've got too
Okay,
much. I've got
fine.
too much to say about this one thing. All right.
Stealth?
Yes, that's what we're gonna talk about. I was trying to get into it. We're trying to learn to transition here.
What happened to Best for Last?
That's what I don't know if this is best for last. It's just emotion. Emotion is what I've got. I got it boiled up, and I can't hold it any longer. It just because it. This is like a scarring thing. This is not. It's more. This probably is more than just this game, but it's systemic with this type of game that is sort of following Dungeons and Dragons, following RPGs, and it's this idea that games promise things that they cannot fulfill or never fulfill, and this is true for games, movies, books, anything, almost anything. Promises are either implied or explicitly told, and when they're not followed through, I get upset, right? And there are levels of angry I'll get with promises. Sometimes, they got a storyline going on, and then they'll drop it and never pick it up, and it's like, oh, okay, it's like Peter Petrelli leaves his girlfriend in Heroes in season 2, and she stays there forever. She's dead, I guess, because they never go back to her. He never thinks about her as the end of her. That's a little promise that was done. All of Lost are empty promises. Every single session, everything that comes up, every season finale for Lost is a promise, and they do deliver something, but it's never around what they actually should have done. And for me, and I would love to hear of a game that I have not experienced that does not fail in this promise, but stealth missions. Stealth and rogue are two of the most enormous promises that are utterly squished, more peed on. They are spit and peed on me because they're the class that I naturally want to try, and every single time I am disappointed. So let's look at a huge example of this, because it's plain as day in Skyrim. Skyrim devotes an entire tree to doing stealth stuff. You get backstab, you get stealth stuff. I think you get lockpicking and pickpocketing, right? It's like all this stuff, in an entire tree. What that whole tree stands for is time that people spent making this stuff into the game, making symbols for this stuff, making it take up your own levels, making you take up your time of game to level this stuff. That is a promise. It's saying, here is this stuff. You level this stuff, and it'll be fun. You level this stuff, and it's going to give you opportunities that you would not have had you not leveled this stuff. If I leveled up warrior stuff, I can use weapons that I couldn't really use before. I get slightly different attacks. You get a defense mechanic that you didn't have before. If you level up the mage class, you get spells that you wouldn't be able to use otherwise. You get some you get things that you can do that you can't do with the other classes. If you level up the stealth / pickpocketing thing, the rogue class, it's called rogue in Skyrim, right?
I think it's a thief in Skyrim.
You level up the thief in Skyrim, and what do you get for it? You get a whole bunch of boxes that are filled with cupcakes and low-level cardboard stuff, and some druid or drummer, or what do they call it? Those dwarven things that robotic stuff. Literal spoons from them that weigh like 10,000 pounds, and I guess are worth a tiny bit. You never get anything that is worth. You are a master level, pickpocket / lockpicking, stealthy thief, and you're never given the opportunity for that to actually be useful in combat or to be useful in the narrative, except in extremely limited cases. And that just, I hate it. I always get tricked. I get tricked by them because I think, okay, this is the one. I'm going to be able to stealth and I'm going to be able to backstab. Let's go do this. Well, you know what? You can't stealth against a dragon. You can't stealth against any boss. You can't stealth against almost any named enemy, because that's not the way the narrative goes. They're going to know where you are, and you're not going to be able to stealth backstab them because you're practically alone. That is just so crappy. I mean, it's the same in Deus Ex, which the guy's name is Adam. I had trouble the last time remembering his name. You have a promise. It tells you, yes, you can be pacifist, you can be non-lethal takedown. It has dialogue that matches it. It has, the perks that match it. You have special skills that help. You have a special weapon that allows you to be non-violent, or not non-violent, a non-lethal takedowns and all that. Then you get to the first boss. You cannot non-lethally take the first boss down. And more than that, before they patched it, your character literally puts a grenade into the first boss's mouth and blows him up. My Adam had gone through the entire game up to this point non-lethally taking down everybody. He had not killed anyone, and people had commented, and he had commented himself, that it's important not to kill people. But when it came to this point, because it made sense, or because they wanted to for the narrative, they had him ruthlessly, gleefully kill this guy. That is a letdown. That is a mispromise, and that is spitting on me as a player. When they should be, happy with the decisions that I make to follow this path that they spent so much time to reinforce. And you know what? Dragon Age does it too. And at a point, in general, I had come to terms. The first thing I leveled was my speech, because I wanted to see what would happen with that. Then I leveled my stealth, and it wouldn't matter because it takes a long time to level the stealth anyway, because you have to level up significantly before it even allows you to go that high. But I had it as high as it could be, as early as you could possibly have stealth maxed. So stealth is maxed, and I had come to terms that it was not useful in the battle. You're too slow. The DPS is, anytime you're not attacking, most of the game is boils down to the DPS you can output on the correct targets. And if your guy is spending a whole bunch of time stealth and slowly making his way from one place to the other, that's DPS is not going down, it is utterly useless. You can't use it really to scout either, because like I said, it's going to aggro everybody and their mothers if you're using it to scout, and you can't de-aggro them, so that's dumb. So it's useless. It is useless in a fight. It's useless before a fight. It's just useless, and I had been okay with that. Okay, I expected it to suck. It sucked. No biggie. Mr. Lion can handle that. Then I get to, what's the name? I don't even know the name of the house. The plane. You're following the Urn storyline, and you're heading towards this city that has been taken over by cults. I don't remember what it's called. you get into this place, right? And you talk to a shopkeeper. And the shopkeeper is trying to sell you something so that you could just get back out of the town, right? And I start talking to the shopkeeper. We have a little conversation. I notice there's a room behind him.
By the way, that place is called Village of Haven.
Okay, the Village of Haven. You get to the shopkeeper and there's a room behind him, and you're like it's like Link in Zelda. You go around looking at everything, poking at everything in Dragon Age. You never get in trouble for taking anything from any case or card or anything. Every now and then, somebody will be like, "Hey, don't touch that chest or whatever." But basically, you touch whatever you want. So naturally, I was in this place. The first thing I was gonna do was go open everything. So I go walk behind him, right? I'm like, I'm gonna go check it out. And what do you know? The guy says stop. He doesn't want me to go back there. He's a cultist and he's a bad guy, but I don't, you're not supposed to know that at this point. He says stop. Don't go back there. I don't want you to go back there. Now, me, the way I had been leveling my character, well, what do you know? Up to this point, I am a master level stealth person. I can sneak past the dragon. My stealth is as high as the game allows it to get. And this is the perfect, of all the situations before this is the perfect situation for me to activate my one move that I've been hanging on to for this whole time and use it. I am Clamps from Futurama. I am walking around just wherever I go looking for an opportunity to put clamps down, and throughout this entire game, it had been promising that those clamps will come in handy. You want me to clamp him? And no, it had not given me the opportunity, but here was just such a situation where a clamp would be the solution to the problem. So I hit stealth, and I tried to get past the guy. And the moment I got right beside the little pathway behind him, what do you know? This shopkeeper, who was also a cultist, who has no particular skill in anything, could spot a master level thief trying to sneak behind his cash, behind his room. That was just a kick, in the head. It was spitting on my grave. It was just a mockery of all that it had promised me to say, not only is this a useless skill to have, like a couple of the other skills, like quite a few of the other skills I have, but it's also, a lot to level, which means you're sacrificing to get this piece of crap. And then the one moment where it would absolutely make sense in every context, including the narrative, we're not going to let you do it. Why? Because I hate you, that's why. That's the only I could think of. When they were writing this, they were like, this is going to make Mr. Lion so mad, he's going to need to go hug some kittens. His blood pressure's going to go through the roof for this one. He has literally, I almost had to stop playing at that moment, just because my brain was wrapping around the disrespect that one moment had for me, and that, oh man, I was very upset. I continued on, I finished that area, and I'm probably gonna finish the game, and I would recommend it highly, regardless. But my God, I want to know who came up with that. They freaking wrote down and spent time programming the dog to bark in a whole bunch of different ways, and they couldn't come up with some way that I could stealth past this one guy. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Wow.
So what do you think?
Now,
Okay,
I didn't really,
what?
really have too much problems with it, mainly because I don't really do that much stealthy stuff. I'm more of a, knight or rogue. I'll go in and just like do whatever.
But hold on. I understand that you don't stealth, but you do, understand that there are a lot of empty promises, especially when it comes to some of the skills.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, just so y'all know, the difference between me and Lion is that he's like a super hardcore gamer and I'm a super light casual player. So I'm more of the storyline type of person where I just want to hear what the story has to say. What?
That's a lie. You are not a story person. You're just a casual person.
I am. I thought Dead Space and Mass Effect had good stories.
And that just
I'm the
you're
type
not
of person.
A story person.
I'm the type of person that just likes to listen to it and wants to know what happens and just get to the end of the story. Lion will like dissect the entire gameplay and find meaning in everything.
You're a casual, and that means you only loosely care about anything. So as long as it is moderately entertaining, you'll be fine with it as until your attention leaves it and you're gone. I understand that gaming is an art, and if you're going to make a crappy game, that's fine. Like a or a movie like a, what is it called? Pacific Rim. That's not supposed to be a fantastic film. That's just a silly movie with robots fighting. I can appreciate that. But if you're trying to do more than that, I am going to critically look at what you do and expect you to fulfill that. And Dragon Age is more than just a Pacific Rim of gaming. They obviously spent time on it, and it shows in a lot of it. But this one bit, man, it was a mockery almost, and to me specifically, and I hope to more than just me. But yeah, I definitely look at games and think, if this was taken seriously, if these people cared about what they did, I am going to respect them enough to also care and critically think about what they're presenting me. That's the difference between us. You just want to play. I want to think about it and absorb it and learn something from it.
Yeah. Now I don't really care for stealth that much, but when it came to Deus Ex, I did play it. I didn't really mind too much the boss battles. Like I said, I just wanted to know what's gonna happen next in the game. I've used stealth in other games like Fallout 3 and in New Vegas, and I found it kind of helpful. Although I didn't go a little crazy when I found out it couldn't work sometimes.
It never worked anytime it mattered. It's the same thing with Bethesda games too. It works when you're fighting little guys here, or when you're coming against a camp of nobody's there. But when you're fighting anything that matters, stealth is useless, except for in very limited situations that it prescribes for you. So this supposedly open world game where anything is possible, they tell you, well, you can stealth as long as it doesn't matter, and I will very specifically allow you to unlock things when I want you to. Otherwise, that master level lock picking skill is not even going to let you get into the old grandma's house, because you know what? When old grandma buys a lock, nobody can pick that lock. That's frustrating. I don't like when games have promises that they can't follow through with.
Well, a lot of the times, if you do open those locks, you'll end up breaking the storyline a little bit, because usually you have to meet somebody before then to progress.
Hey, but if they don't want me to break the storyline, then don't make that a skill. Then don't promise me. That's what it is. The allowing me to get that skill is the promise. It's saying, look, you're gonna get this, and we understand what this is what we're giving you. It would be as if they gave you the ability to jump in Dragon Age, but didn't program the game. So if you jump somewhere, you could just break whole sections, or just break the game entirely to where you can't get back because you can jump. Oh, well, just because we gave you jump doesn't mean we actually want you to use it. But by giving you that, they're implying that it is a part of the game, that it is something. And the more they spend on that, if they give you points to jumping and levels to jumping and special boots that help you jump better, that is all implying we understood that we're giving you jumping, the ability to jump, and we're going to make it relevant to the story. That's what that is, and that's why it's frustrating. And every single role-playing game I've ever played that has stealth as a thing has had it utterly wasteful. Even the one that I could think of that had it pretty good, Neverwinter Nights. Neverwinter Nights was like as hardcore D&D, unless you're playing like Boulder Gate. It's pretty much as hardcore D&D as a gaming gets. And Neverwinter Nights had stealth okay, but I remember playing, we had like 8 people who were playing Neverwinter. It's not exactly designed for 8 people, but it was still fun. And when I got to my super supreme master level ultra fantastic levels of stealth, right? And I was the scout and doing stuff and semi-useful. My friend had gone the what route did he did the paladin route. Well, what do you know? There's this one paladin feat or whatever that makes him have even better hide than I do. So when we came up against a dragon, me, who had spent the entire game leveling my stealth, could not get past the dragon without being seen. Him, who had been leveling paladin junk this whole time, got this one ability where do you know? He can sneak past the dragon. Spit in my eye. That's what that is. Spit in my eye. Why? Why do they all do it? I don't understand. For God's sake, someone go out there, make a game where stealth is significant, and not the entirety of the game like Thief. That's passion there.
Aside from stealth, there are other abilities and skills you can learn in the game. I noticed that some of them are a lot harder to unlock than others. Some of them you have to find out how to open them. I believe they're called specializations.
Well, I got that. That's another sore spot of mine. You should continue on and let me know when you want me to build on that.
Well, for those who don't know, specializations in Dragon Age are little skills that you kind of have to discover in the game. Usually you find a book that'll teach you a new specialization. Others you can learn from talking to your companions. I believe you get one from Alistair and another from Augrith. And what that does is it gives you the slot, and you have to have like a special point to unlock it, kind of like the skill tree. And then once you unlock that specialization, it'll open up a branch on your skill tree, like a whole new set of like 5 skills that you can level up to better, you know, that skill.
So you're saying it all complicated. You're making it sound like there's this whole procedure to it, and I want to try to clarify what you're saying. He's saying that there are these relatively meaningless looking items that you pick up that open up entire ability spectrums out there, and the game never makes it clear that that exists. So why, in a game where you have levels, like 6 different level trees, you have your ability tree, you have that weird, I don't even know what to call it, where you can level up your combat ability and potion making ability and stuff like that. I don't know what to call it. You have that tree, and then you have a specialty tree that you get to pick. Once you get to a certain level, you can turn a rogue into like an assassin or something like that. Then you also have your ability tree that's a whole other tree, and then there's a completely separate thing that has nothing to do with any of that, that is not a mechanic that any other part of the game follows, that you get other specialties from, that you can pick up from companions, or from buying something from the most common salesperson that you see. He's got this book, this manual, a manual to open up something that's that significant to the game. That is the opposite of a promise, I think. That is hiding something that's a core thing that could be interesting. And I felt like when you told me that you had this thing, I was like, what? I didn't get anything like that. And I was just upset that I missed this whole part of the game. Not like it would have mattered because I put so many points into stuff. But had I put them anywhere else, I could have had a more interesting character to build off of. And the game failed to make that clear to me. And I think that's a big problem, to fail something so significant. If they assumed I was gonna stumble on it, I didn't, and I'm almost near the end of the game. I'm like 10% left.
Okay.
So you got nothing to say about it? I mean, you're bringing it up as like a.
Well, I use it. That's all I can say. I mean, I didn't really think much of it. You know, like I said, I'm the super casual gamer. I go in. A lot of the skills I don't even really pay attention to. I just select whatever I feel my character could use, and I do pretty well throughout the game. They'll usually go in and use it. One thing I noticed is that as playing as a rogue or a knight, will have like mana or energy or whatever they call it, and I never really run out of it. It's kind of funny. And that's because I keep a lot of my abilities active, because there's some, once you activate it, it uses like a certain amount of mana, and like you won't get it back until you deactivate it. And I notice I can keep on like 3 of them, and I'll still have enough mana to activate the rest. And I just like run in and just keep using it like that. I never really run out of it.
Did you notice?
Huh?
Did you notice that you had to click to turn it on and click to turn it off to regain that mana?
Yeah, I did. It took a while because I noticed, oh, my mana wouldn't regen, and I'm like, what's going on? And, oh, because this ability is still active, because a lot of them you click once and it uses it, and then there's a cooldown. But no, some of them will stay on until you deactivate them, and then they have like a cooldown. But a lot of the times I just can just run in and do whatever in a battle, and I usually don't have to worry about how much mana.
To be fair, you're playing it on easy.
Yeah, but still.
On normal, you run out of mana. They give you a lot more enemies to fight without a break.
But a lot of the times I won't run out. That's one of the biggest things for me is like the actual items you get, like the potions. That's why I bring it up, is because like those mana potions or whatever they call them, the blue ones. I never really found a use for them. Very rarely, if I was like completely out and I was like in a boss battle, I might have used one or two, but most of the time I don't. I do use most of the time health potions. I noticed also they have like the poisons, and they got some weird ones for like resistance and all that, and I really didn't find any use for them in the game. Unless, like you said, if you go like a super hard game mode, you would probably need them, but I didn't really see a use for it. I think the same thing could go for like the traps and the other abilities like the herbalism. I never really found a use for them. They felt more like an extra in the game.
Yeah, I guess when they made them, they had a plan for them and they never came through. I think that those were all empty, and that's another mispromise there, because the herbalism takes up 5 of those, whatever they're called. They're not ability points. I don't know, tech tree points. I don't know. They take 5 of them to level that thing, and honestly, I don't think I found a recipe for more than a level 1 potion, and so I mean, it doesn't make sense to me that they came up with that mechanic. Somebody sat around coming up with the recipes. Somebody programmed all of those recipes. Then they put them in different places for sale, and so all this work is done for this thing that I don't think is very useful. I will say that when you put it on a harder setting, the potions are useful in the beginning level because you don't have that many ways of healing, and later on the mana is the one thing that is very handy, because there's no easy way of recovering your mana without them. You don't have like a mana mage who heals mana from people. So
No.
the health can get healed by magic, but the mana you run out of pretty
Now
quick.
I noticed something similar in New Vegas, where they had the options to like upgrade your weapons and create ammo, and I think you could even create a stim packs. But throughout the entire game, I've never used them because I didn't never really found a use for them.
Did you
I
play
didn't
it on
even
easy?
really. I was playing normal. There's like normal, and then there's like a hardcore mode where you can become dehydrated and your ammo picks up weight. But I don't see how I would have been able to use it in there. I didn't to this day. I still don't even know how it works. I was trying to play around with it, and I was like, okay, with the stim packs, you got the empty stim packs or whatever, and like how do you fill them up? And I never could figure out how to do it. It just feels like it's an extra that's just kind of thrown in there for fun.
I think that I know that's one of the main reasons why I pick usually the hardest setting when I play a game at the beginning, because I feel that the difficulty forces you to look at more of what the game's mechanics has to offer you. Otherwise, you have it on easy, and it's a breeze to win. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to worry about running out of ammo. You don't have to worry about dying. You just go through it to go through it. And when you put it on the hardest setting, generally it forces you to think about what you have and try to open up the possibilities to find a way to win. Depending on how some of them are just mean though. Some of them don't tell you. I remember, I was Dante Devil May Cry. In Devil May Cry, I got one of them, and the first thing I did, of course, is set it to the hardest level. Well, what do you know? Devil May Cry assumes you've already beat the game and are playing it again with a completed character. So I made it maybe 25% of the game through, and I was like, God dang it, this is like the hardest game I've ever played, because I have to level in this condition where these guys take 10,000 hits to kill, because it expects you to have already beaten it to have the special item, you know, because each enemy has a weakness towards a particular item, and you're supposed to have those other items when you get here. And then when you get to the first boss, they expect you to have them as well. And that was vicious, and I think the game should have told me, you know, you should really beat this game once before you get here, because we're assuming you've got all the abilities. Mass Effect is another one that I started on the highest level, and that leads to the one last thing that I wanted to talk about. But Mass Effect also does that, where it assumes you know about the game. I actually think it assumes you have some stuff from a last playthrough, because when you first started off on the highest level, if you've never played before, it puts you against enemies that have things that you don't have. They all already have shields. You don't have a shield breaker, and you don't have the best of weapons. So for the first, I don't know, 10%, my game was just running at them to close the distance to get past their shields that they would drop, and doing whatever I could to win the fight. And that was the most interesting time I had with the game. But then another core problem I think that so many RPGs have came up, and that's that the beginning is the most difficult part, because at the beginning they have so many things closed off, so many options closed off, that you're forced to be very blunt in your actions. There's no utility. There's no creativity. What?
Now, I actually kind of noticed that the very first time I started playing Dragon Age, I started off as a mage, and then I went into the what's that place called?
Fade.
The Fade, and I fought that first demon, and I actually died a few times because I wasn't familiar with the game or the interface. And then later on, when you had to go into that tower to ring the bell, or no, light the fire, there was that ogre that you saw the first time, and I just kept on getting defeated so bad by him, and that's because I had it like on normal difficulty. I didn't even have it on hard. It was pretty tough. Again, because it was something I had just begun, and I wasn't too familiar with the game, and it was quite a challenge. Now the second time around, I went in as a knight, and then the third time as a rogue, and I was able to defeat it a lot easier those times.
You did have an easier setting though, but I had it on a harder setting, and it was still not easy because you don't have the options. Later on, a lot of your characters have stuns and have different delay tactics. You have heals. You have more heals than the couple that you've picked up to this point. You have a whole plan of what you're gonna do already there. But in the beginning, when you first go, you don't have any of that. You have the very limited skills that your characters have, and you're forced to try to, just make it work with that. And I wish there was a game that had the opposite, where in the beginning you had a whole bunch of options, a whole bunch of skills to deal with, and it was fun and open. And by the end of the game, it starts limiting you on what your options are, to force you to more critically think about what decisions you have, so that you can't just find your one hammer and beat the whole game through like what a lot of people do, where it forces you to find your way up to a point, and then hey, it's like, okay, well, you don't have that as an option, what are you gonna do now? Okay, you don't have that as an option, what are you gonna do now? And just to where at the end you're just doing the most bitterest things you can to get by. That's the kind of game I want. Because another issue is that because of in Dragon Age you have so many things capping some of these ability points. You have a skill level cap where an attribute level cap where you need like 30 dexterity or 20 cunning or something to get it. You've got a level cap that you have to be at least level 12 to get this ability, and then you have the cap that it's in fact a tree, because they're in a line. So if you're gonna get the third skill in this tree, you have to have the first skill to get the third skill, and that is also another limiter to getting that skill. And on top of that, for some of the skills, you have to get the specialization, which is a whole other cap. So that's 5 different things that have to be lined up, set correctly for you to get a couple, like one ability. And that's a lot of stuff in your way to get something that opens the game. So
it kind of reminds me of Skyrim. Yeah, you have so many skill trees to choose from, and you can start it however you want, but it seems like throughout the game, no matter what class you start off with, you'll end up being either a knight or a mage. So you either be casting your spells, or you're gonna be having your heavy weapons, or your bow or whatever. It seems like you can't go just straight up like a thief, or you do your conjuring and all that. You can't. Those are like kind of secondary, even though they put them all in the same level of the skill tree. You always end up as, a knight or a mage.
It's because all the best skills are not till an enormous skill cap. Like the archer skill that gives you the 30% more damage and like faster reload speed. Those are so high on the tree. It takes so long before you can do any kind of significant damage. And by the time you get all that stuff, you're practically done with the game. That's my problem with this one too. Dragon Age, you go through a lot of the different levels with this limited set of abilities, and then when you get to the end, it's like, well, that was nice, but there goes, I spent all this time getting this stuff, and now there's only like one more area to the map again for me to use all this fancy stuff that I put together to get my team to work together, and that's a big letdown, which is why I like Dark Souls. Dark Souls. That's why I like Dark Souls so much.
Dark Souls.
Yeah, that's why I like Dark Souls so much, because as soon as you're done with the game, it's like, well, okay, you can play it over, and now everything's harder. And it's like, now I have a reason to use all the cool stuff that I built, and I think it does it like 3 more times, where it gets ridiculously hard, honestly. But it gives you a reason to, or just to start over without rebuilding. You could get a new item so quickly. But I think that is a problem with this type of RPG in general, where you don't get to be awesome and have interesting options until too late in the game. And by the time you have those things, you've already wasted all these enemies and cool places you could have been with a very limited set of skills. And also, it was harder. It was harder in the beginning because you had less skills. They need to flip that difficulty around, make it easier in the beginning, and get harder by the end, and give you more abilities early on so that you can start getting from it. Because that is rough, man. When you're picking skills in Dragon Age, there is no resetting. And it is not 100% clear what stuff is going to do. So it's telling you, you're going to make this choice blindly without knowing what the other options are, without knowing what other characters you're going to get and what skill sets they're going to have. You're going to blindly make this choice, and you're going to have to be okay with it, because we're not going to tell you what's coming up next. If instead, could you imagine if you started off early and you have all these abilities, and you could see that later on, some of them are not going to be available. And maybe you have to sacrifice. Maybe that's the game, where as the level goes on, as the game goes on, you have to sacrifice abilities to continue on. So I'll give up my ability to jump to go further, and now you're gonna have to learn how to play without jump. Man, that would be freaking awesome. That's the kind of game I want to play. Okay. Anyway. Okay. We're about the end of this. I just want to finish this by saying that I really did like this game. This was a kind of game that I don't expect to find again for a long time. And I almost don't want to finish it, because I'm going to go back to just hating and seething as I play the new crap that comes out. We're getting ready to play Saints Row 4 or whatever, and I expect it to be entertaining at best and not a real experience like this game is. What are your last thoughts?
I agree. I like the game too. I mean, I got it for free, just the base game, and then I'm like, I wanna know more about it. So I ended up getting the ultimate with all the DLCs, and then there's like the continuation that comes after the final battle, the awakening. I like it. I'm actually kind of anxious to go and buy the Dragon Age 2, and then later on, was it Acquisition?
You see, you don't understand. This is a guy. If you put a bottle of water from the Fountain of Youth, it's like, you can live forever if you drink this bottle, and it'll only cost you $60. He'll be like, I don't know, and need a couple of weeks to think about it before purchasing that crap. So spending money when he got something for free is a real win, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I'll get part 2 and then part 3 when it's, kind of old already, and like $5 and with DLCs. Then I'll jump to it. But the whole series as a whole, yeah, I've enjoyed it so far, and I'm looking forward to seeing the rest.
Yeah, see, in $5 in 5 years, when it's like $5, it'll be perfect time to do a late game review.
It's great.
All right, well, we'll see you guys next time.
All right.